Welcome to IMC Live, the interactive webinar series hosted by the Industrial Marketing Collective. That's this. We're here to help you make connections, learn, and get results for your business. And I'm Alan Finnewald, Associate Content Director at the Industrial Marketing Agency, Gorilla 76, and one of your IMC Live hosts. And this week, we're going to be talking about how marketers can merge creativity and technology to improve attribution through AI call systems. And we're very happy to have on our guest, Josh Rozman, marketing manager at Oberlin Filter Company, USA, who has an awesome story about that and more. I'm really stoked about this one. I think we're going to go in ways and directions that people probably don't expect because Josh and their new AI-based brand mascot, Phil, is not only helping with customer questions, attribution, call tracking, and early sales support, he's also found his way into pitch decks and public events. That's him back there behind Josh. I love him already.
Feeling his thunder, Alan.
Oh yeah, sorry. I don't know. You might be wondering who that tall man is standing over him. And I'm told he may soon grace the company's explainer videos as well. So yeah, not to steal your thunder, Josh, but why don't you start by just telling us a bit about yourself and your work, and then we'll dive into Phil.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Well, thanks so much again for having me on. I'm Josh Rozman. I run the marketing for Oberlin Filter Company USA, and I've been here for about 2.5 years now, marketing team of one. So I'm sure there's a lot on this call that can relate to that, which means I'm juggling, trade shows, content creation, social media, lead tracking. Sound familiar to anyone? But I love what I do, and for the most part, change is what gets me excited, gets me out of bed to start the day, and excited to always look for ways we can improve what we're doing and improve the time and energy that we're spending on marketing efforts. So really happy to be here and excited to kind of share what we've been doing.
Yeah, Josh, we're stoked. Josh is also going to be speaking at the Industrial Marketing Summit. So just a little plug here for that. I was super excited when I saw your speaker abstract come through. And I know we'll kind of dip in talking a little bit more about Phil and this spokes character, this mascot that you've created for Oberlin. But before we even get into that, the thing that kind of came up that got us say, yeah, Josh, you need to come on the show next week as we were mapping out topics was just you've just been really diving into 2025 and making some big changes and improvements to your program and really bold ways. And so I think that's really just fun, and also hopefully it leaves folks feeling inspired to maybe try something a little bit bold and new at their own company. Can you just tell us a little bit more about Oberlin and what you've been there for about 2 years, a little bit more
Hmm.
now.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us a little bit more about the story of Oberlin, you joining the company and getting to this point?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, they were looking for someone, a marketer, to come in and help out with what they were doing. What Oberlin does is we're a small manufacturing company, and we make industrial filtration equipment. So it's liquid solid separation, so not like air filtration or anything like that. So it's really common to find us in manufacturing companies around the globe that are looking for that, whether that's removing breadcrumbs from hot frying oil or metal shavings from coolant. Our mission and our focus is to basically allow companies to improve the way that they're using their existing resources and save money through filtration, which really has a tremendous ROI on that initial investment. So it makes everything cleaner, makes product quality better, and it makes customers happier. And the people working with those machines every day makes it easier to do their job as well. So, um, when you think of industrial filtration, I don't know how many companies come to mind initially. So probably not very many, because it's not a very common thing that people think about. So what we do here is actually really, really special. It's kind of like a really neat part of a lot of manufacturing processes that doesn't really get fully explained. So when I started here, I was just looking at everything and going, wow, like we do such a neat thing, and it impacts the world. Our filters are everywhere in the world, and what we do, it may not sound the most exciting, but it is a really cool process because it's in a lot of things. And I saw this and I was just thinking like, wow, how can I get the word out about this? What are some creative and strategic things that we can do and put in place, over time to get people to really understand our process? And initially, I think, like a lot of manufacturing companies, it's filled with a lot of technicalities and a lot of information that can be a little challenging to comprehend at first glance. So, what I was thinking of for a while is how can we get this in front of more people in a way that not only they can understand better, but it's more fun to kind of consume that information as well. And that kind of led me to the path that we've taken over the last year and to where we are today. So
Really cool. So tell us a little bit more about so we wanted today to talk about not just Phil who's lurking over your shoulder, but also some attribution.
yeah.
Um, you kind of started this year thinking a little bit more about what you needed to get out of your attribution story and what story you were trying to tell. Can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more about the challenge that you were encountering and just how you started to solve it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, everything that we'll talk about today comes from like real implementation. So these aren't, theories or anything that we're just throwing out there. These are real things that we've done at Oberlin that have really made a huge difference in what we do. But like probably the best way to kind of tell this story is like many industrial marketers, we invest money in trade shows, digital campaigns, content marketing, all that stuff, right? And it can definitely be challenging to pinpoint what efforts are actually bringing in the biggest deals and then how we got there. So, we were generating leads, we were closing business. It really wasn't a problem for us, but we just needed to find a better way about what was actually working. So this led me to kind of what I call ghost hunting. So let me just kind of paint a picture for you on what that looked like day to day and why I kind of started to call it ghost hunting. So here's what I mean by ghost hunting, and I bet this will totally sound familiar. So we were basically hunting ghosts. So what does that mean? We knew that phone call leads were coming in, but we were having a challenge figuring out where they came from. Did they come from our trade show booth? Did they come from different social media campaigns we were running, or was it that new updated brochure that we published 3 months ago? So it was kind of like being a detective with no clues. So the leads would appear, deals would close, but then the story of how that customer actually found us was kind of one of those mysteries that kept me up at night. So hopefully you appreciate the spooky season puns here. But the wake up call was for us was like a breaking point. So it was when sales and marketing teams came together and we kind of realized that we needed to make sure that these inbound calls weren't just getting attributed to the wrong source. And what we found, like I'm sure most manufacturing customers today, and I'm sure a lot of those same customers that you can relate to, they're doing more than half of their research of their journey online before they were ever calling us. So these were not like impulse purchases, right? A lot of the customers are not just going, "Hey, I feel like buying a big filtration system today." These are technical buyers doing their homework, and so our challenge wasn't necessarily, that we weren't successful at generating leads. We were, But what we were missing was that complete story of what actually drove those phone calls. And in industrial marketing, if you're not tracking those phone calls, you're really missing out on some big opportunities. Um, so I could probably even give you an example too, real quick. So quick example would be last quarter we closed a pretty significant deal through a phone call. Standard, pretty much standard procedure. Sales guy asked, how'd you hear about us, that type of thing. And the customer said, oh, I saw you on social media. So now the old me, maybe like a year or so ago, would have given 100% credit to like social media, whatever platform it came from, and called it a day. But I was starting to become more curious and trying to figure out like, wait a second, this was too big of a deal for someone to just discover over social media. So I began to dig deeper into what was happening, and what I actually found was that this customer first saw us at a trade show months earlier, and then they visited our website over and over. And then social media, what we gave initial attribution to was just where they found our phone number when they were ready to buy. So the problem that I think a lot of manufacturers may be struggling with, especially their marketing teams, is giving attribution to something that the credit didn't really stem from. So the credit came from that initial trade show that the customer attended, and not that social media platform that lead came from. So I think personally that the scariest part, which really was eye-opening to me, was that right now, in most cases, this is probably happening to some of your biggest phone inquiries right now. So you may be crediting the wrong marketing channels and your marketing budget decisions to the wrong attribution because you have incomplete data. So that's when I really realized I needed to start tracking everything, and that's where phone call attribution came in.
So I know you mentioned the word credit, but when we
Mhm.
were doing this prep for the call, something that you said was like, it's not about credit. So I kind of want to like just call back to that, and give you a chance to maybe explain, like, I guess your philosophy maybe on attribution, and like what it is for and what it's
Sure.
not.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I guess when I say attribution, I'm not talking about like some complex, enterprise phone system. I think what it really comes down to is making sure that you're assigning partial credit in the best way. So the first, I guess you could say, there's probably three things you could say about call attribution. So the first one would be pretty much knowing exactly which marketing touch points that led to someone picking up the phone and calling you. The second one that call attribution probably is about would be budget optimization. So understanding what channels really generated that valuable phone inquiry versus, just website visitors who browse around a few times and leave. And then thirdly, I would say it's that marketing credibility. So having like real data that when executives ask you, which marketing efforts drove the phone calls, you have no more vague answers about like, certain brand awareness. Like, oh, it's just, brand awareness, and they kind of found their way in the door that way. But let me be clear what like call attribution isn't. So it's not about like perfect tracking. So you don't need to capture like every single interaction someone has with your brand. I'm not talking about that. And it's also really not about like those expensive systems. So not like some enterprise call center software that costs you, more than your marketing budget. And it's also not about like immediate results. But what you're doing here with call attribution is it's all about building a foundation for smarter marketing decisions over time, I would say.
Yeah. So what's your recipe for measuring that partial influence that each step has throughout the process? Because you think you don't really know what you could do without. Like maybe that social media post wasn't what really initially inspired their interest, but you don't know if maybe they saw a competitor's ad at that moment instead of yours, whether that
Yeah.
still would have worked out in the way that it did. So
Mhm.
yeah, how do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think it's all about. So one of the neat things that you can do with this software is you can tag the different efforts that the customer experiences over time and assign a certain percentage to um, for what that looks like for your company. So if there's a certain method or attribution method that is more important to you and you want to you can attach it to increase in sales opportunities, then you probably want to weigh that a little bit more. So I would say I wouldn't put like a specific percentage or number on any one thing in particular. I think that's really up to you to decide. But you know, overall, when a call comes in, I think being able to have the technology to tag the different interactions that they experience or had happen along the way is really important. So you could tag it as like initially they came in through a search ad, and then they visited the website. Here's the page that they visited. And then maybe like a month later, they decided to call in and get some more information off of a brochure. So you're able to see like, how this is the brochure they called from because you have a specific number associated with that brochure. So being able to kind of tag, if you will, and then yourself assign, what percentage of credit you want to give to that particular customer journey is going to be on what works best for you. But the big thing is having that big picture. So 6 months, a year from now, being able to look at that and go, wow, this is, 60% of our customers ended up following this particular pattern. And then having that to model future marketing efforts off of and being able to replicate that over and over, I think is really powerful, powerful data.
Yeah, because the funnel is often not a straight line. Like it really gives you
Yeah.
the chance to understand the complexity of your sales funnel.
Yes, exactly right.
I do think it's important to mention like a few things. Like we talked a little bit about partial influence. This is something that I've thought about a lot. Because like you said, Josh, it's not often just like they saw one social post and then they're like, oh yeah, let's work together and
Yeah.
let me spend $100,000 with you like overnight. That's
Right.
often not the case. So it is like about this story of all the different levels of like the different content that like they're been able to tap into without talking to a sales rep, the
Yeah.
ability to talk to a sales rep, maybe kind of like lurk at a trade show and learn a little bit more about you. So like all of those different things.
Hmm.
Um, and I agree with you that like, you have to kind of figure out like how you want to measure that and what percentages you might want to weight that influence on. I've built like some custom fields inside of HubSpot to like
Yeah.
before to like try and start to articulate this. And I think like the most recent time that I've looked at this in terms of like return on investment and like the attribution was when I looked at IMC Live, like what has been our return on investment on this show, and that's really hard. Like there are different ways I could look at that. Like so, attribution is they joined IMC Live and then became a Gorilla customer,
Yeah.
or they are a Gorilla customer now and they've participated in this program. And I think there's two like there's layers to that, and there's no reason to hide one total over the other, but it's part of the whole story of like, well,
Yeah.
why do we do this? Why do we continue to go to trade shows? Why do we continue um, to post on social media? This stuff takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and then to just know that it's not just the trade show that's delivering the result. It kind of gives respect to other channels that you're running, other initiatives that you're setting up when you do this partial. Um, and then there was something else that we were talking about, I think a little bit about software. So you've mentioned, I know like the software that you're using for call tracking is CallRail,
Right.
uh, and it is pretty affordable. Are there any, and we can talk more about like just like that implementation. I think folks would be interested in it. And but are you using any other tools there at Oberlin to do
Yeah.
this for yourself,
In specific for just for call tracking.
or just for attribution in
Oh,
general?
sure. Yeah. So, I mean, right now for the phone calls, like you mentioned, yeah, CallRail. And then also we will take a look at, our CRM is set up with plenty of automations and all the bells and whistles to be able to kind of see, what pages, are most important to that person visiting the website. But as far as other attribution techniques, it's primarily just what comes in through the website and being able to map out like that journey from that initial search and what pages were important to them on the website, and then monitoring the phone calls later on. That's probably our primary method right now.
Yeah. And you said you started implementing this earlier this year. So we're maybe a quarter, 2 quarters in to this so far. And like you said, the goal is you get that longer horizon and you start to be able to see the trends.
Yep.
I just made me think of one other thing, and like just a word of caution for listeners and folks on the call today. It's like I I think like what I see happen sometimes is like this like want to overcorrect and like almost like, oh, we started collecting data and now you've got one data point and you're gonna like shut down a whole program or just totally change directions. And you said something earlier, Josh, that I think was really poignant, is like just like it's about that longer horizon.
Hmm.
So you have to kind of um, you know, plant the little seedling now, let
Yep.
it collect data and grow. And then you can sit in the shade of like this beautiful tree where you have a good idea of what's really causing all of the great things that are happening.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, Josh, like what have you been learning so far?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So I think, over time, like you said, I would say, implemented this a relatively short time ago, but we're starting to notice that there are, customers that do follow similar patterns before they reach out to us. So being able to take a look at that journey, and like you mentioned, not necessarily focusing on the one touch point that kind of everything was attributed to, like we were mentioning earlier. Oh, they came in through this social media platform, or oh, they came in through the website. But being able to see that journey of the data over time is really cool to pull from. And what we're kind of seeing is that there's those common patterns that are happening. So when you have all that data, just kind of like something to think about here, it'd be really neat to be able to even take that and incorporate it into AI to help find patterns in the data and similarities, which will help you make better and smarter marketing decisions in the future. So when you have that, again, everyone knows this, it's all about the data. So I would say do as much as you can. Like for 2026, a big focus for me is do as much as we can do to collect as much data as we can to get that 30,000-foot view on our efforts. So you're not attributing marketing dollars to like trade shows that you really didn't get very much ROI from. But really, it's just so important to have that big perspective on your entire marketing picture and the efforts that you're making every day, especially now. Things can be challenging sometimes. So to be able to know where every single dollar is going is just probably more critical than ever before.
Yeah, and on top of the data, it's also adding a bit of convenience for your sales team, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what's really nice is, when you have these powerful systems set up, you can empower your sales teams with that journey. So, when a customer visits the website and came off of a search ad, and then they called in and then they downloaded a particular brochure, by the time they reach that to that transition point where they're making that initial contact with sales, when the salesperson opens up that lead in our CRM, they're able to see that entire journey and really within seconds, paint that picture on how they got there. And I think, having that data to empower your fellow coworkers and your sales teams is just it's priceless. So you can see exactly, within seconds, a salesperson can log into the CRM and see, okay, these are the topics that are most important to them, and then they can formulate, their approach that best fits what their customer needs, and that is just so powerful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And on the weekends, is Phil Connect is also kind of serving as a call screener, maybe even like an early stage salesperson, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, we can definitely talk about Phil. So, what's been really neat. So the reason why we introduced Phil, well, let me just jump right into that. So, you might be wondering, like, why did you create this spokes character? What is this all about? And kind of the story behind it is, I was it was right around the holiday, and I was driving home from work one night, typical evening, go to sleep, and then in the middle of the night, the TV just turned on. Now it probably was, maybe I rolled over the remote or something, but the TV turned on, and then it was just like a commercial with a spokes character that if I said, everyone would recognize. And I was like woken up by it, of course. And then I just got thinking, and I was like, wow, this is so interesting. What if we could do something similar? And then I went back to bed, and then woke up the next day and was driving to work. And then I started to look around on my drive in and see these characters everywhere. Now, it's kind of like when you buy a car, you start to see that vehicle everywhere, more commonly. But I started to think, what if we did this at Oberlin, and we have really, technical information, and what if we could do it in a fun and interesting way where we could have this spokes character go and speak about the products that we offer. So I started to kind of do some more digging and figure out, what? I think this is something that we need to do. So I started going through the initial design process and kind of mocking up some ideas of what I wanted him to look like. And then I was able to approach a leadership team and go, hey, so I've got this crazy idea. I want to start this spokes character, and I think that this could be something really cool. Not only could you stand out, but I think it'll be really fun for employees, customers, etc. And I think what's normal in any situation like this is that healthy skepticism where you're kind of like, wow, that sounds cool, but is this going to work? And I'm really blessed to have such a great team here at Oberlin that they were open to the idea, and they said, you know what, let's give it a try. So we moved forward with it, and initially he was just um, we started doing cardboard cutouts, like you'll see him right there. So initially, he was just like a fun thing to have in the office, and we started putting him on the website. But then I took it further because I was like, you know what? There's more that we need. There's more that we can do with Phil. So that kind of morphed into more of customer support. So we have a chatbot on our website, and his name's Phil. He's actually assisting customers. He can assist them 24/7, and he pulls different reference materials and data off of our website and basically brings all that information forward to our customers. So it's created an incredible experience that way. And then I said, you know what, this is great, but I think we can still do more. And now we've actually began the process of the 3D animations and being able to animate him and get him to walk around our product. And you'll see in like 2026, there'll be different explainer videos that will have come out. But I think what's been so neat about this whole experience is that I think it's important we really focus on having fun at what we do as well, and realizing that, yeah, technical information is very important, but who doesn't like a fun way to receive that information? So Phil's just been an incredible marketing asset that we've been able to deploy here, and now, I mean, it's just super humbling to say we'll have companies. Uh, submit their contact form or their inquiries or call into the business and say, "Hey, where's Phil? How's Phil doing? Can I talk to Phil?" And the answer is they can. So kind of like what you were mentioning, Alan, we found this opportunity where um, after business hours and on the weekends, I was able to deploy a Phil, what I call Phil Connect, which allows customers to talk with Phil when we're not available to take the call, and then it takes the information and relays it over to the correct team. And it's just so shocking and surprising to see all of the applications of this mascot spokes character cartoon, whatever you want to call it, and it's just turning into one of our greatest marketing assets ever that people just are just really loving because it takes such a technical process or technical information and makes it more human.
Well, I mean, you think back to like what like the experiences that we've all had, like calling your insurance company or whatever, calling a service provider of any kind. You
Yeah.
get on the phone and you're like, oh, I'm trying to do other things. Oh, now press one. Oh my
Yep.
God. And you're just like sitting there trying to like, oh, I've got to switch out of this. And I don't know, the phones have become so complicated these days. And
Yes.
now, with what you've set up with CallRail, before CallRail, you created Phil, and he had
Hmm.
like this identity, this personality that you've developed in line with the Oberlin brand. But then you were like, okay, I have these tools, chat, call tracking. CallRail is already recording your calls, so your sales reps could listen into the entire call or the entire voicemail. But what Phil's doing, my understanding is, like Alan said, he's like almost like an inside sales guy who's just getting a little bit more information. So when your sales rep comes back on Monday morning, they're not just getting a voicemail with like, this is Joe, call me back, here's my number. They are getting a little like Phil's kind of prompting them with like, what can I help you with? What sort of thing do you need? And asking a
Hmm.
few of those questions where before they might have had to do a phone tree.
Yep.
Now they're just able to talk. And be more verbose, maybe share more about what they're going through. And all of that is then being delivered in your CRM, correct?
Yep. That's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It,
And it
it's
all, sorry.
no.
It just amazes me to how it also kind of turns the AI issue on its head, where most people are like, crap, I got to talk to a robot.
Yep.
It's like people are like, oh, sweet, I get to talk to Phil.
That's right. And I think you just have to have fun in what you do. And I know sometimes it's just so easy to get caught up in the technicalities of a lot of things and try to do things textbook perfect. And, we've all been there. But at the end of the day, people want to enjoy their experience. It's really that simple. And if you can find ways that you can implement different ways of doing things in a way that people have they already have expectations that they're going to be, like you said, Alan and Peyton, press one for this, press two for this, but you can turn it into more of a conversation that humanizes your process and
Yeah.
what you're doing. I think people really appreciate that. And kind of like what you were mentioning, what Phil does when you call in to him after hours is he'll reference you by name, and this technology is super super powerful. It's because everyone's dealt with those bots where you say something, my name's John or whatever, and it says thanks Jeff, and you're like, oh geez, here we go. But what's so powerful about this technology these days and the ability to leverage it, especially with us being a smaller company, it creates uh, such a personal experience that although the customer knows they're talking to more of a bot, it still feels personal enough, and they were able to take what they were calling in for and check it off their list. And you were able to accomplish that for them using by thinking ahead and deploying, smart technology. So let's give you an example of like a thing that I find really cool about this as well. Like when it asks you, what state or territory you're in, this technology now, if you're not aware, is so advanced that you can talk to it and not answer the question. What state are you calling from? Oh, the same state as my phone number's in. Okay, great. Wisconsin, or Florida, whatever that is. It's that advanced. So no longer do you have to worry about saying things so perfectly and having your customers answer it using one of the three keywords that it's looking for. It's just, it's incredible what's out there and what you're able to do to really deliver on these awesome experiences for your customers.
Well, I'm
And I
sure
think,
that, go on, Peyton.
oh, so I was just gonna say, I think about like what you're doing. So CallRail is integrating AI into their system.
Yeah,
HubSpot, another like example of CRM, a marketing automation platform, they're layering AI into that tool. So like, I think when folks think about AI and use cases and all of these things, it doesn't always have to be like this external like chat like LLM sort of like agent that you set up. You can like if you're using the right partners, they're already layering this stuff into their own systems, their own
yeah,
softwares, and you can just kind of tap into it oftentimes for like the same price that you're already paying.
right.
So I think like that's just like another consideration, I guess I'd like to flag for people is like before, like if you're trying to think, okay, I'm a solo marketer like Josh, and I would love to do this sort of stuff, but like how? I don't have enough time in the day. It's like you can start to maybe look at the tools you already have, see if there's ways and applications that you can jump into
Yeah.
Mhm.
there because you were using CallRail, you had Phil, you connected the dots.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yep.
But speaking of the connecting the dots, I just want to touch on how much prep you all had to do to make sure that you knew Phil and that Phil feels like someone who works with you all. That like the reason that that works so well, not only as an AI bot, but you're able to take him over to other applications, is because you all did the homework to figure out who Phil is and why he works here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and part of that process, like you mentioned, Alan, was getting going into the weeds and the details enough where Phil has a backstory, and the AI, the chatbot that we use has Phil's backstory. So the way that he's responding is the way that Phil would respond because it knows exactly who he is. And while we were developing Phil, it was really important to us that he represented, the people that work here. And we have such a great group. It's the type of person that could be behind a desk taking a look at a design drawing, but then also 10 minutes later be on the shop floor underneath a filter, taking a look at making sure that everything was where it needed to be. So, when you really, it's just amazing what happens when you really think through these things, and it's also really important to do because people appreciate it at the end of the day. Employees love it. I mean, just the office shenanigans that happen with Phil showing up around the building is just so much fun. It's created like a extra layer of excitement around the office, and then having customers really see him and connect with him and go, okay, this is pretty cool. It really represents our brand and the great people that we have here too. So if you do it right, I'd say take the time necessary. If you're going to do anything, right, make sure you do it right. But take the time necessary up front to really think this through. And you can use technology to help you think through the process. So if you're stuck and you don't know where to start, just start there. And what you'll end up with is, I think, something really, really incredible.
So one objection, I know we're getting kind of to the end, but I
Sure.
think this is a nice question for you is, like, why did you even do a character in the first place? Like Oberlin's got 99 employees, it's a family owned company. There's probably a lot of subject matter experts in there. Like,
Sure.
why not a person? Like, why did you do this in the first place?
Yeah, that's a great question, Peyton. So, when you take a look at doing something like this, especially when you're a one-person marketing team, you definitely need like scalability, right? So you need something that you can um, continue to replicate over and over, but also doesn't you don't have to set up or reserve studio time or something like that. And because everyone does so much around here and we run a great lean organization, it's important to make sure that, when looking ahead, we we were not getting in anyone's way and saying, oh, great, we need to bring someone in here and set up this big film studio and spend a whole bunch of time and money on that. So we created Phil because he's extremely scalable. And I think there's a lot of brands that have realized that as well. But at a moment's notice, we can take him, animate him, and get him to do, what we need him to do. If there's a specific topic that we need to really make sure we talk about and communicate with customers, we can do that in probably a week or so. We can go ahead and animate him and get him in front of the filter and point to things and open doors and talk about it, instead of trying to set up this huge production and find the right people and bring them in. And there's a lot of expenses and time involved with that. So part of not going that direction and going more of the character or cartoon direction is for that scalability that we found.
Plus, like I think of Jurassic Park when they're, going through the park initially and the DNA strand is telling them about how the dinosaurs are made. And you was like, oh, this DNA strand's cool. It got creepy whenever the AI or like the version of the park owner showed
Yeah.
up and started talking to himself. That's when it got weird.
Yeah.
Like you would have a similar issue if you tried to make like an AI version of your CEO or whoever.
Right, right. Yeah, and I actually just saw I just saw a comment roll through here too, and I think I forget who mentioned it, but it was about languages, and that was another piece to this whole thing too. What's so cool is we're able to communicate with so many different customers from around the world with us having our filters around the world. I believe he's up to 75 languages now, which
Oh my
is
gosh.
again, it's super scalable. And it was just, the more that we're kind of going down this path, we're really starting to realize that this was a really good decision, and it's going to really set us up nicely for the future.
Yeah, quick
Yeah.
question before we have to end. We're already a little over time, but we
Sure.
had from the audience. Can you talk about the data ownership? Does Oberlin own Phil and his likeness fully, or is there design rights that you have to worry about? How does that work?
Yeah, good question. Yep. So we do own Phil. So we own everything about him. So yes, and that's, I think, such an important process when you're taking a look at this stuff. If you do, so we actually hired a designer to put his final look together. But that's an excellent question. In today's world, where you have a lot of the AI technology, where you could probably create your own character in a day or so, after messing with it, it is really important to figure out, what you can use and what you're allowed to use. And I would definitely say look into that if you decide to go this route. But ultimately, we used a designer to kind of finalize that process. And that's a great question.
I've been taking some AI training myself, and I was surprised to learn that, if you do build something, and I'd be curious if anyone else has had um, experience with this, or if you write something, whatever, if you develop it, if AI does it for you, no one can really own it. So you do have to, like, you can take those ideas, but if it's something like this that you wanted to, I think that's really smart, Josh, that you guys tapped into a designer um, to like lock it down,
Right.
because yeah, you can't copyright something that a robot generated. Basically, it's just apparently it's not possible.
Yeah.
So definitely keep that in mind if you're jumping in and wanting to do this yourself.
Yeah, and not to just and just to kind of, I guess, add to that as well. So if you are, this information, everything moves so quickly. But if you are, what I would say too, looking at to do something like this, especially a lot of the graphics platforms out there that specialize in creating and animating and things like that, there are certain licenses that a lot of the times you're also required to purchase. So, like for example, if your company is over X amount of dollars annually, in their terms, a lot of companies require in order to use, whatever you're producing commercially, you have to be on those higher end paying platforms. You can't just sign up for a personal account. You really have to make sure that you read through that stuff. So I'm glad that we're having that conversation too, because it's the not fun part, but it is a very important part of this whole process too.
Making sure that it ends up a continued success.
Yes,
Not
absolutely.
a cease and desist of some kind.
Yeah, the bugs live in the weeds.
That's right.
Well, we covered a lot of ground today. I think, like, just the big takeaways for me, Josh, thank you so much for coming on. It was
Yeah,
just
my
really,
pleasure.
really fun to like hear what you guys are working on right now. Um, but just the power of attribution and like that data that's building. Um, Tech and AI doesn't have to replace any sort of creativity, but it can definitely enhance it. And I think you've championed that here. And then what you just said, just start small and build on it. Phil
That's right.
started at the beginning of the year, and Phil has now shown up at all sorts of places in all sorts of different outfits, and
Yep.
he's talking to people now and going to be dancing before we know it. So I think that's really cool. But Josh, if folks want to keep this conversation going with you, other than showing up at Industrial Marketing Summit and hearing from you talk in depth about Phil and what you've learned a year later, where can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Like I said, like you mentioned, we'll be at Industrial Marketing Summit. If you haven't been there before, please look into that. It's or tell someone that hasn't been there before, invite them. It's just such a great community. This would be now my third year attending in a row. It's literally my favorite event to attend. Such a great group. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Ask me anything. I'll be happy to respond and help you out and maybe point you in the right direction or maybe save you some time. But yeah, you can check me out there and
Thanks
check
so
out
much.
Phil. There you go.
Yeah, and check out Phil. So I dropped the Oberlin website there. You can see Phil
Cool.
there if you are watching this later. It's oberlinfilter.com. And our next episode, everyone's going to be October 2nd at 10 a.m., our favorite time, Central. And we're going to be talking about video. And again, thinking about video as an in-house marketer and how to make this stuff happen when you might not have a full-fledged team, or how to enhance the full-fledged team that you do have. So really excited about that. And then between now and then, if you want to keep the conversation going, you can reach out to any gorilla here on LinkedIn. But join us on Industrial Marketing Collective. It's on Circle. And if you want to get into that, just go to industrialmarketingcollective.com or ping one of us gorillas and we'll get you suited. So thanks again, everyone, for being here. It's always great to see you, and we will catch up next time.